Your soulmate is being harassed. They desperately want to contact you but lost your number. Don't scroll, listen to this because your heart needs this right now. If these words have appeared before you today, take a quiet moment and let your heart listen instead of your fears. Sometimes life places a message in front of you not because it predicts the future with certainty, but because it reminds you that hope can survive even during seasons of confusion. Somewhere in this world, the person who will one day become deeply important in your life is walking through a difficult chapter they never expected. They feel surrounded by pressure, constant negativity, and people who seem determined to drain their peace. Every day has become a test of their emotional strength. They smile when they have to, continue fulfilling responsibilities, and try to convince everyone around them that everything is under control. Yet when the day finally ends and silence fills the room, they admit something they have never spoken aloud. They are exhausted. Not because they are weak, but because they have been carrying battles that no one else can see. In their quietest moments, your future soulmate often wonders if there is someone somewhere who would truly understand them without asking them to explain every scar. They long for a connection that feels safe instead of stressful, peaceful instead of unpredictable. Deep inside, they believe such a person exists, even though they have not met them yet. They cannot describe your face. They do not know your name. But they often imagine what it would feel like to finally speak with someone who listens with compassion rather than judgment. That hope has become one of the reasons they continue moving forward even on the hardest days. The title of this message speaks about losing your number, but the deeper meaning reaches beyond a phone contact. It represents every missed opportunity, every delayed conversation, every season when two people are moving toward each other without realizing it. Your future soulmate feels as though they are trying to reach a place of peace but cannot yet find the path. They believe they are searching for something meaningful, yet each attempt seems interrupted by circumstances they never planned for. That feeling has become increasingly difficult to ignore. Just a few evenings ago, something happened that left them sitting alone long after everyone else had gone home. The events themselves were not dramatic enough to make headlines, but emotionally they changed everything. A series of harsh words, unfair criticism, and constant pressure finally reached a point where they could no longer pretend it wasn't affecting them. They realized they had spent far too much time trying to satisfy people who had no intention of appreciating their kindness. They had given energy to conversations that only left them feeling smaller. They had stayed in environments where peace slowly disappeared one day at a time. As they sat quietly reflecting on everything, a single thought kept returning to their heart. There has to be something better than this. That sentence became the beginning of change. If your future soulmate could somehow send you a letter before your paths officially crossed, perhaps it would begin like this. I don't know who you are yet, but I hope you're protecting your peace. I hope you've learned that kindness doesn't mean accepting constant disrespect. I'm slowly learning that lesson myself. For a long time I believed that if I just stayed patient enough, every difficult situation would eventually improve on its own. Instead, I discovered that some situations only change when we become brave enough to change ourselves. I wish I had understood that sooner. Those words stayed in their thoughts long after they imagined writing them. The next morning, everything around them looked ordinary. The same streets. The same routines. The same responsibilities waiting to be completed. But something inside had quietly shifted. They no longer viewed their struggles as permanent. They began asking different questions. Instead of wondering, "Why is this happening to me?" they started asking, "What kind of person am I becoming through this experience?" That simple change in perspective transformed the way they looked at every challenge. Instead of allowing difficult people to define their identity, they began allowing difficult experiences to strengthen their character. Perhaps your own heart understands that feeling. Maybe you've experienced seasons where you felt misunderstood. Maybe you've tried to remain kind while carrying burdens invisible to everyone around you. Maybe you've questioned whether life would ever become peaceful again. If those thoughts sound familiar, then your journey and your future soulmate's journey already share something important. Both of you are learning that genuine peace cannot always be found by changing circumstances overnight. Sometimes it begins when you stop allowing other people's behavior to determine your own sense of worth. Throughout that week, your future soulmate noticed something remarkable. Every time they chose calm instead of reacting immediately, they felt a little stronger. Every time they protected their peace instead of arguing endlessly, they felt a little freer. Every time they reminded themselves that another person's unkindness did not define their value, another invisible chain quietly broke inside their heart. Still, there were difficult nights. There were moments when loneliness returned. There were evenings when they wished they could call someone who truly understood what they were carrying. In those moments they imagined speaking with the person they hoped to meet someday. Not because they expected that person to solve every problem, but because they believed real love begins with feeling emotionally safe. They pictured simple conversations after long days. Sharing honest thoughts without fear of criticism. Laughing about ordinary moments. Supporting one another through difficult seasons instead of pretending everything was perfect. Those quiet dreams became more comforting than any temporary distraction. One evening they stood outside watching the sky slowly change colors as the sun disappeared beyond the horizon. The air felt peaceful in contrast to everything they had experienced recently. They realized nature never rushed to prove its beauty. The sunrise arrived when it was time. The stars appeared without asking permission. Trees continued growing even through storms. That simple observation reminded them that healing also follows its own rhythm. It cannot be forced, but it can be trusted. They quietly whispered another promise to themselves. I will not allow difficult people to decide what kind of heart I become. Those words became the foundation of every decision that followed. Your future soulmate has also begun preparing for a future they cannot yet see. They are becoming more careful about where they invest their energy. They are learning to recognize relationships that bring mutual respect instead of constant anxiety. They are discovering that emotional maturity is not about avoiding conflict altogether but about choosing which conflicts deserve your attention and which ones deserve your distance. Perhaps this message has reached you because your own heart needs that reminder today. You are not defined by every difficult chapter you've survived. You are not permanently shaped by every disappointment you've experienced. You are allowed to outgrow environments that no longer bring peace. You are allowed to protect your emotional well-being without feeling guilty for doing so. Before this first chapter comes to an end, your future soulmate wants to leave one message resting gently inside your heart. If these words somehow reach you before our lives ever cross, I hope they remind you to keep believing in the quiet work that healing accomplishes. Right now I'm learning how to reclaim my peace one decision at a time. There are days when I wish I could simply skip ahead to the chapter where everything finally makes sense, but I know growth doesn't happen that way. Every lesson I learn today is becoming part of the partner I'll someday be. I don't want to carry bitterness into our future. I want to carry wisdom. I don't want fear to become the loudest voice in my heart. I want compassion to remain stronger than disappointment. Wherever you are today, I hope you're becoming stronger too. I hope you're learning that your value has never depended on the opinions of those who fail to see your heart clearly. And when our paths finally meet, I hope we both recognize something familiar in each other, the quiet strength that only comes from surviving difficult seasons without allowing them to steal our ability to love. Until that day arrives, I'll continue choosing hope over despair, peace over chaos, and healing over resentment, believing that every step forward is bringing me closer to the life we're meant to build together. So if this message found you today, remember this above all else. Your future soulmate's difficult season is not the conclusion of their story. It is becoming the place where they learn resilience, wisdom, and the courage to protect the peace they will one day share with you. What feels today like a missed connection is only a reminder that meaningful relationships are built by two people growing separately before they are finally ready to grow together. Every lesson they are learning now is quietly preparing both of your hearts for a future founded not on fear, but on honesty, kindness, and lasting peace. The days that followed did not suddenly become easier for your future soulmate. In many ways, they became even more challenging because once a person finally recognizes what is stealing their peace, it becomes impossible to pretend everything is normal again. Every morning they woke with the quiet determination to protect their heart, yet every afternoon seemed to present another test of that decision. There were people who criticized them no matter how hard they tried. There were voices that constantly questioned their worth, their choices, and even their kindness. Every conversation seemed to demand more of their energy than they had left to give. They often returned home emotionally exhausted, wondering how so many people could be surrounded by others and still feel completely alone. Late one evening, after another difficult day, they sat in complete silence with their phone resting in their hands. They scrolled through old conversations, old contacts, and memories that belonged to chapters of life they had already outgrown. For a long moment they stopped on an empty search bar, almost as if they expected to find the one conversation that would finally bring comfort. Instead, all they found was quiet. It wasn't that they had literally lost your number. It was that they had not yet found the connection their heart had been searching for all along. Somewhere inside, they believed there was a person whose presence would feel like coming home after years of wandering through emotional storms. They simply hadn't met that person yet. If your future soulmate could write another page in this invisible letter, perhaps it would begin this way. There are moments when I wish I could call someone who already understands me without asking me to explain why I'm tired. Not someone who will fix every problem, but someone who will remind me that I don't have to carry every burden alone. Maybe that person is still somewhere beyond today's horizon. Maybe our lives are quietly moving toward each other while neither of us realizes it. That hope keeps me walking forward. That hope became stronger than the fear surrounding them. One afternoon, something happened that changed the way they viewed their struggles forever. A stranger offered them unexpected kindness. It wasn't dramatic. It was a simple gesture, a few sincere words, a smile that carried no hidden expectations. Yet it reminded your future soulmate that the world still contained genuine people. They realized they had spent so much time focusing on those who created chaos that they had almost forgotten kindness still existed. That small moment stayed with them long after the day ended. Sometimes healing begins not through extraordinary miracles but through ordinary reminders that goodness has not disappeared. As night fell again, they found themselves thinking about the future more than the past. For the first time in a long while, they imagined what it would feel like to build a peaceful life with someone who valued honesty, patience, and emotional safety. They imagined quiet mornings sharing coffee without pretending everything was perfect. They imagined encouraging one another through difficult seasons instead of adding to each other's burdens. They imagined laughter returning after hard days because both hearts knew they had found someone who truly listened. Those dreams no longer felt impossible. They felt necessary. Your future soulmate has begun realizing that the people causing them stress today will not define the rest of their story. They are temporary chapters, not permanent destinations. That understanding has given them courage to slowly step away from situations that constantly leave them emotionally drained. Every healthy boundary they establish feels uncomfortable at first, but afterward they notice something remarkable. Their heart becomes lighter. Their thoughts become clearer. Their hope becomes stronger. Perhaps your own life has taught you a similar lesson. Maybe you've discovered that protecting your peace sometimes disappoints people who benefited from your constant self-sacrifice. Maybe you've learned that saying no to chaos is another way of saying yes to healing. Maybe you've realized that not every battle deserves your energy. If so, your journey and your future soulmate's journey are quietly reflecting one another. Both of you are learning that peace is not found by winning every argument. It is found by refusing to let unnecessary conflict become your identity. There are still nights when fear returns. It whispers familiar questions. What if life never changes? What if I'm always surrounded by people who misunderstand me? What if real love never finds me? But another voice has begun answering those fears. What if every difficult season is teaching you how to recognize genuine love when it finally arrives? That question has become one of the greatest sources of comfort your future soulmate has ever known. One weekend they decided to spend time completely alone. Instead of filling every quiet moment with distractions, they chose reflection. They walked through peaceful streets, watched the trees move gently in the wind, and noticed how nature never rushed its own growth. Flowers did not bloom overnight. Rivers reached the ocean one patient mile at a time. Even the strongest trees became strong because they endured countless storms rather than avoiding them. Looking at those simple truths, your future soulmate realized they had been demanding instant healing from a heart that deserved patience. That realization changed everything. They stopped criticizing themselves for not recovering faster. They stopped expecting one good day to erase years of emotional exhaustion. Instead, they celebrated small victories. A peaceful morning. An honest conversation. A moment without anxiety. A genuine smile. Each small step reminded them that healing is rarely dramatic. It is usually quiet, steady, and almost invisible until one day you suddenly realize your heart no longer hurts the way it once did. Your future soulmate has also begun praying, not necessarily for life to become easier, but for wisdom to recognize what truly deserves their attention. They no longer want to spend precious years trying to convince the wrong people to understand them. Instead, they hope to invest their love where it will be received with gratitude rather than taken for granted. That hope has quietly become one of the strongest motivations guiding their future. Sometimes they imagine the first evening the two of you will spend talking together. They picture a conversation that lasts far longer than either of you expected because neither heart feels the need to pretend. They imagine telling you about the difficult season they survived, not to relive pain, but to show how deeply those experiences taught them gratitude. They imagine listening carefully as you share your own journey. In that moment, they believe both of you will quietly recognize something extraordinary. The struggles that once felt meaningless were actually preparing each of you to appreciate a peaceful love far more than either of you could have before. Before this chapter comes to an end, your future soulmate wants to leave another message resting gently within your heart. If these words somehow reach you today, I hope they remind you never to lose faith because of the people who failed to protect your heart. Their actions do not define your future. Right now I'm learning that every difficult season carries hidden lessons. I'm learning that protecting my peace isn't selfish, it is necessary. I'm learning that my heart deserves relationships where honesty is welcomed and kindness is returned. Wherever you are, I hope you're discovering the same truth. I hope you're refusing to let disappointment convince you that genuine love no longer exists. I believe that somewhere beyond everything we can currently see, our stories are slowly moving toward one another. Until that day arrives, I promise to keep healing instead of hardening. I promise to become someone who listens before judging, encourages before criticizing, and stays calm when life becomes difficult. When we finally meet, I don't want to bring the chaos of yesterday into tomorrow. I want to bring wisdom, patience, laughter, and a heart that has learned the value of peace. If it feels like I've lost your number today, perhaps it's only because destiny is still writing the moment when our paths finally connect. And when that day comes, I believe every unanswered question will suddenly make sense. Perhaps that is the deeper message hidden inside this chapter. Your future soulmate is not truly searching for a phone number. They are searching for the kind of connection where neither person has to earn acceptance by pretending to be someone they are not. Every difficult interaction they face today is teaching them to value gentleness. Every moment of loneliness is increasing their appreciation for genuine companionship. Every challenge is quietly shaping the person who will one day stand beside you with a heart that understands the priceless value of peace, trust, and unwavering love. As another week quietly unfolds, your future soulmate begins to notice something they had overlooked for a long time. The people who constantly create chaos around them have not only been demanding their attention, they have been stealing their ability to imagine a peaceful future. Every difficult conversation leaves behind invisible exhaustion. Every unfair accusation lingers in their thoughts long after the words have been spoken. Every attempt to defend themselves only seems to invite more misunderstanding. For a while they believed that if they could simply explain themselves better, everything would improve. But now they are beginning to understand a difficult truth. Not everyone is searching for understanding. Some people only want control, and no amount of explaining will satisfy someone who has already decided not to listen. That realization is painful, but it is also the beginning of freedom. One quiet evening, after another emotionally draining day, your future soulmate placed their phone on the table and turned it completely off. They needed silence more than another notification. They needed space to hear their own heart again instead of everyone else's opinions. As they sat beside the window watching the last light disappear from the sky, they asked themselves a question they had avoided for years. What kind of life do I actually want? The answer arrived more quickly than they expected. I want peace. Not temporary peace that depends on everyone behaving perfectly. Not peace created by pretending everything is fine. Real peace. The kind that remains even when life becomes difficult. The kind that allows two people to disagree without destroying each other's trust. The kind of peace they secretly hope to build with you someday. If your future soulmate could write another page in this invisible letter, perhaps it would begin like this. I've spent too much of my life trying to survive difficult people instead of preparing for a beautiful future. I don't want my story to be remembered only by the struggles I've endured. I want it to be remembered by the love I chose after those struggles. If we haven't met yet, I hope you're protecting your own heart too. I hope you're learning that kindness does not require you to accept constant disrespect. I hope you're discovering that your peace is worth protecting, because I'm finally learning the same lesson. Those words stayed with them throughout the following days. Slowly, almost without realizing it, they began changing small habits. They stopped replying immediately to messages that only created unnecessary stress. They spent more time reading, reflecting, and walking outdoors. They allowed themselves moments of quiet without feeling guilty for stepping away from constant noise. These changes appeared insignificant from the outside. Inside, they were transforming everything. Your future soulmate also noticed that healing is not only about leaving painful situations behind. It is about creating new habits that allow joy to return. They began appreciating simple things again. The warmth of morning sunlight. The sound of rain against the window. Fresh coffee before the world became busy. A genuine laugh shared with someone who expected nothing in return. Those ordinary moments slowly reminded them that life contained far more beauty than the difficult chapter they were currently living through. Perhaps your own heart has experienced something similar. Perhaps you've had seasons where you forgot how peaceful ordinary moments could feel because your attention was constantly pulled toward problems. Maybe you've spent so much energy surviving that you forgot what living peacefully actually feels like. If so, your future soulmate would understand completely. They know what it's like to carry invisible exhaustion. They know what it's like to smile politely while wishing someone would simply ask, "How are you, really?" That question has become surprisingly meaningful to them. Not because they need someone to rescue them, but because they long for honesty. They long for conversations where people truly listen instead of waiting for their turn to speak. One afternoon they crossed paths with an elderly couple walking slowly through a nearby park. The couple wasn't doing anything extraordinary. They were simply walking together. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they remained completely silent. Yet even their silence seemed peaceful. Your future soulmate watched them disappear down the path and quietly thought to themselves, "That's the kind of love I want. Not dramatic. Not confusing. Not constantly tested by unnecessary games. Steady. Patient. Safe." In that simple moment they realized something remarkable. The difficult people surrounding them had unintentionally taught them exactly what they no longer wanted. And because of that, they had become much clearer about what they truly hoped to build in the future. They no longer chased excitement. They searched for consistency. They no longer admired unpredictable affection. They admired reliability. They no longer believed love should feel like emotional survival. They believed love should become a place where both hearts finally rest. As these realizations continued growing stronger, your future soulmate made another quiet promise. They promised themselves they would never bring unresolved bitterness into the relationship they hoped to share with you. They refused to allow today's pain to become tomorrow's unfair expectation. Instead of assuming everyone would eventually disappoint them, they chose another path. They chose hope. Not blind optimism. Not unrealistic fantasy. Hope grounded in wisdom. Hope that had survived disappointment without allowing disappointment to define every future relationship. That hope became stronger every day. There were still moments when loneliness visited. Sometimes late at night they wondered whether somewhere another heart was experiencing similar emotions. They imagined someone else sitting quietly after a long day. Someone else praying for peace instead of perfection. Someone else refusing to let difficult experiences destroy their ability to trust again. Without realizing it, they were imagining you. Although your lives have not crossed yet, your future soulmate believes that two hearts can begin preparing for each other long before they ever meet. Every lesson you learn today. Every healthy boundary you establish. Every fear you overcome. Every act of forgiveness you choose. All of it quietly shapes the relationship waiting ahead. Your future soulmate has also started thinking about what they would say during the first truly honest conversation the two of you eventually share. They imagine telling you, "There were days I thought I would never escape the emotional weight I was carrying. There were nights I questioned whether peaceful love even existed anymore. But I kept choosing hope one day at a time. And now, sitting here with you, I'm grateful I didn't let difficult people convince me that genuine kindness had disappeared from the world." Perhaps those words will one day become reality. Perhaps they will remind both of you that the hardest chapters were never meant to become permanent homes. They were classrooms. They were places where wisdom quietly replaced fear. Before this chapter comes to an end, your future soulmate wants to leave another message resting gently within your heart. If these words somehow reach you before we ever meet, promise me one thing. Don't allow the people who misunderstood you to define the way you see yourself. Don't allow temporary pain to convince you that lasting peace is impossible. Every difficult season eventually reveals something valuable if we're willing to learn instead of surrender. Right now I'm discovering that protecting my heart isn't about building higher walls. It's about becoming wiser about who I invite inside. I hope you're learning the same lesson. I hope you're finding the courage to release relationships that constantly steal your joy. I hope you're discovering that your kindness was never your weakness. It was always your strength. One day, when destiny finally allows our paths to cross, I don't want either of us to arrive carrying the weight of yesterday's bitterness. I want us to arrive with hearts that still believe in laughter, still believe in honesty, and still believe that peaceful love is worth waiting for. If it feels today as though I've lost your number, maybe it's only because life is still preparing the moment when we no longer need to search. Until then, I'll keep becoming someone who chooses compassion over resentment, patience over panic, and hope over fear, believing every step is bringing me closer to the life we are meant to build together. And perhaps that is the deeper meaning behind everything your future soulmate is experiencing. The harassment, the misunderstandings, the emotional pressure, and the lonely nights are not writing the ending of their story. They are quietly revealing the incredible strength already growing within them. Every challenge is teaching them to recognize peace when it finally arrives. Every difficult encounter is increasing their gratitude for genuine kindness. Every lonely evening is preparing them to cherish the simple gift of being truly understood. Though it may feel today as though the connection has been lost, nothing meaningful has disappeared. The path is simply still unfolding, and with every lesson your future soulmate learns, they are becoming more prepared to build a future with you that is founded not on fear, confusion, or emotional chaos, but on trust, compassion, honesty, and a quiet love that finally feels like home. There comes a moment in every difficult season when something inside quietly changes. The circumstances may remain exactly the same, the people around you may continue behaving the way they always have, and the challenges may not suddenly disappear. Yet somewhere deep within the heart, a decision is made that forever changes the direction of the journey. That moment has finally arrived for your future soulmate. They wake one morning and realize they no longer want to spend another day allowing fear, criticism, or emotional pressure to decide who they will become. The people creating chaos around them may still be speaking, but their words no longer carry the same power. The constant tension that once consumed every thought is beginning to loosen its grip because your future soulmate has discovered something stronger than fear. They have discovered clarity. For weeks they believed the answer was to escape every difficult situation immediately. Now they understand that while changing circumstances is sometimes necessary, the greatest transformation happens inside the heart first. A peaceful life is not built in a single dramatic moment. It is built through quiet decisions repeated every day. Choosing not to argue when silence protects your peace. Choosing to forgive without inviting continued harm. Choosing to believe that your future is larger than your present struggles. Those decisions seem almost invisible, yet together they become the foundation of an entirely new life. One evening, after finishing another long day, your future soulmate walked outside just before sunset. The sky stretched endlessly above them, painted with colors that changed minute by minute. As they stood watching the light slowly fade, they thought about how nature never struggles to become itself. The stars never compete with the sun. The ocean never apologizes for its depth. Trees do not stop growing because storms arrive. Everything in creation quietly continues fulfilling its purpose despite changing seasons. Looking at that sky, your future soulmate felt something they had not experienced in a long time. Hope. Not the fragile hope that depends on perfect circumstances. A steady hope. The kind that grows after surviving enough disappointment to understand that difficult chapters never last forever. If your future soulmate could write another page in this invisible letter, perhaps these would be the first words. I used to believe strength meant surviving anything people placed on my shoulders. Now I know real strength also means recognizing what was never mine to carry. I've spent years trying to solve problems that belong to other people while quietly ignoring the needs of my own heart. That season is ending. Wherever you are today, I hope you're learning the same lesson. I hope you're discovering that peace is not selfish. It is necessary. Because when we finally meet, I want both of us to arrive with hearts that know how to rest, not just hearts that know how to endure. Those words stayed with them long after the sun disappeared. During the following days they noticed subtle changes inside themselves. Conversations that once left them anxious no longer occupied their thoughts for hours afterward. Criticism that previously felt overwhelming now passed through their mind without defining their identity. They had finally begun separating other people's opinions from their own sense of worth. That separation brought an incredible freedom. They realized they did not need universal approval to live a meaningful life. They only needed the courage to remain true to the values they wanted guiding their future. Perhaps your own journey has taught you something similar. Maybe you've spent years trying to convince everyone to understand your heart. Maybe you've exhausted yourself explaining decisions that only you were meant to make. If so, your future soulmate would gently remind you that not every misunderstanding requires another explanation. Sometimes the healthiest response is continuing forward with quiet confidence, allowing time rather than endless words to reveal the truth. There are still difficult moments. Healing has not erased every challenge. There are days when old fears unexpectedly return, whispering familiar doubts. They ask whether life will truly become peaceful, whether healthy love actually exists, and whether all this personal growth will eventually lead somewhere meaningful. But something beautiful has changed. Those doubts no longer remain unanswered. Another voice now speaks with greater authority. You've already survived everything you once believed would break you. That simple reminder becomes enough to keep moving forward. Your future soulmate has also begun noticing opportunities that would have escaped their attention before. New friendships built on mutual respect instead of constant obligation. New interests that bring genuine joy instead of temporary distraction. New dreams they had almost forgotten because survival had consumed so much of their energy. It feels as though clearing emotional clutter has created room for unexpected blessings. None of these experiences erase the difficult season they have lived through, but each one reminds them that life is far larger than the chapter currently unfolding. One rainy afternoon they found themselves sitting inside a quiet cafe watching people come and go through the windows. Some hurried because they were late. Others laughed together without worrying about the weather. A young family entered carrying umbrellas, smiling despite being completely soaked by the rain. Watching those ordinary moments, your future soulmate realized something profound. Peace is not found by waiting for every storm to end. Peace is discovered when you learn to keep living beautifully even while the rain continues falling. That realization became another turning point. Instead of postponing happiness until life became perfect, they began appreciating the present. They laughed more often. They rested without guilt. They stopped measuring progress only by major victories. Instead, they celebrated every quiet sign of healing. A calmer reaction. A healthier boundary. A peaceful night's sleep. A hopeful morning. Each small victory reminded them they were becoming someone completely different from the person who first entered this difficult chapter. Sometimes they still imagine what it would feel like if they could somehow call you today. They picture hearing a voice filled with kindness instead of criticism. They imagine someone asking not what they have accomplished, but how their heart is doing. They imagine telling you about everything they've learned through these difficult months. Not because they want sympathy, but because they believe honesty builds trust. They hope that when your stories finally meet, both of you will understand that every painful experience carried hidden lessons preparing you for something healthier. They also imagine listening to your own story. The disappointments you've survived. The dreams you've refused to abandon. The quiet prayers you've whispered when no one else was listening. They believe those conversations will matter far more than grand romantic gestures because they will reveal the resilience already living inside both of you. Before this chapter closes, your future soulmate wants to leave one final message resting gently within your heart. If these words somehow reach you today, remember this. Never mistake survival for the life you were created to live. There was a time when I believed simply getting through each day was enough. Now I understand that life offers something far more beautiful than endless endurance. It offers healing. It offers growth. It offers the chance to become someone whose heart remains gentle even after experiencing disappointment. Right now I'm choosing not to let difficult people shape my future. I'm choosing not to let constant criticism become my identity. Instead, I'm becoming someone who protects peace without losing compassion, who speaks honestly without creating harm, and who continues believing in genuine love despite everything I've experienced. Wherever you are, I hope you're making those same choices. I hope you're discovering that your greatest strength has never been your ability to carry endless burdens. Your greatest strength is your ability to keep your heart open without surrendering your wisdom. If it feels today as though I've lost your number, perhaps life is simply preparing the moment when we no longer have to search for one another. Until that day arrives, I promise to keep becoming the kind of person who values honesty over appearances, patience over panic, and peace over unnecessary conflict. When we finally meet, I want us to recognize not only each other's smiles but also the quiet courage that carried us through every difficult season. And perhaps that is the hidden truth behind this entire journey. Your future soulmate is no longer defined by the voices that once surrounded them. They are becoming defined by the choices they make despite those voices. Every challenge has strengthened their discernment. Every lonely evening has deepened their appreciation for authentic connection. Every difficult conversation has taught them how precious emotional safety truly is. Though it may seem as if the connection between your hearts has been delayed, nothing meaningful has been lost. Each day is quietly preparing both of you for a future where love is no longer built on confusion or fear, but on trust, resilience, compassion, and the unwavering peace that only two healed hearts can create together.